Hi everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Senate map and see how, if and how, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death is going to affect the Senate. So Mitch McConnell, as you all have already seen, has said he will be putting someone through, he will be holding hearings on whoever Trump decides to appoint. If this person gets through, that means a third of the entire Supreme Court will be made up of Trump justices, and it will be 2/3 conservative, 1/3 liberal. So that could set the Democrats off decades. So they are saying that they're going to be all in on this fight. They're going to really try and keep this seat vacant for as long as they can and just keep trying to hold it until if and when Biden is elected. So also wanted to briefly touch here, we have the 538 Senate forecast. So this would be the deluxe model here. If you take a look at each individual race, it forecasts, for example, the Georgia races, David Perdue, John Ossoff. Some of these do have to go to runoff, so it's very confusing in Georgia. Basically, there are two Georgia elections. The very first election is the David Perdue, John Ossoff election, and if no candidate gets to 50% plus one, because there is a libertarian candidate there, it will go to a runoff. Now, this runoff obviously will just be between Perdue and Ossoff, and in the runoff, you can see here, it's kind of confusing looking at it here, but yeah, if no candidate wins at least 50% of the vote, the top two vote getters advance to a runoff. In simulations where a runoff is necessary, popular vote margin is calculated using runoff share votes. So you can see here, there's the polling for the race, and then that's pretty much it. And then the Georgia special election, if we go to it, Georgia special election, right now there's 2 Republicans running and 3 Democrats, and they'll all be in a jungle primary. So right now, it's not looking, quite frankly, it's not looking all that good for the Democrats, because it looks because you can see here almost all of these are going to go for a runoff, and most of if it's between a Republican and a Democrat, Republicans probably going to win. So really the only chance the Democrats have is that if Raphael Warnock and Matt Lieberman both are in the runoff, and so that would be kind of quite surprising to see there. So yeah, so that's Georgia, is very confusing, and then Louisiana also has a runoff, but again, that's going to be Republican anyway, so that's not really as big of a surprise. But some of these states in this deluxe model, it did kind of surprise me how favorable they are for the GOP. I mean, I don't think Martha McSally has a 22% chance to win. I think she's quite a bit lower. Colorado, Cory Gardner's definitely less than the 31 in 100. Steve, that's a very interesting race. I'll come back to that race. But then you look at states like Michigan, Minnesota. I think Republicans probably have better chances than 538 is giving them credit. North Carolina, it seems about right. And then New Hampshire, also about right. Texas, 88% chance for John Cornyn. The polls haven't been looking good, but I reckon MJ Hagar's still in with a slight chance to go on and win that state. Here, this is the closest races here, so I'd say that with RBG, that probably, if Susan Collins is going to vote against confirming Trump's justice, that's definitely going to help her in Maine, I think. You know, I do think that is going to, I reckon that's going to help her win. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Sort by state, so there you go, the list of states, but I'll go to the margin first. One really interesting race is the South Carolina race. 84% Lindsey Graham, 16% Jamie Harrison. You can see most of the polls show Graham with a small lead, but then this Quinnipiac poll really caught everyone's eyes because this is the most recent poll. All these were quite a long time ago. So most recent poll, it's just one poll. They are even. And another very important thing to go ahead and take a look at is previously in these polls, even in some of these in some of these polls, like this even poll here that also caught many people's attention. This is from Civics and has a 591 sample size. However, when you actually compare it to where are we? When you compare it to the Quinnipiac, it's 969 sample size, which is much better. And also Harrison's much closer to 48%, sorry, closer to 50%. If you take a look here, there was still a lot of undecided voters there. And a lot of people thought, maybe these Republicans are just going to come home to Lindsey Graham. But now Harrison has shown he can get up to those 46, 47, 48, 49%, which is much better in terms of winning. If let's say you had a poll in a Republican state where you were the Democrat was at 42 and the Republican was at 41, but then you also had a poll that was much closer to the election that showed the Republican up one. The much better poll for the Democrats is the Republican up one. If they're much closer to 50%, because you really need to be getting the number of undecided voters down as much as you can. Let's go ahead and go into our 2020 Senate map, how this is going to affect the race. And pretty much what I'll be doing is for each of these toss-up states, I'm going to say how Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death is going to affect the election. So let's go ahead and start off with Arizona, because Martha McSally has already said that she's going to support McConnell in allowing it to be filled. I don't think that's going to be very popular, so we're going to say this one moves towards the Democrats slightly, and we'll be using the tilt feature for that. Colorado, Cory Gardner, again in a very difficult position. He's kind of in a lose-lose situation. Maybe he knows he's going to lose anyway, so he might go down fighting. Either way, so Colorado, we're going to say lean Democrat slightly. In the state of Montana, I think that the Steve Daines will be able to run on this. It's a deeply Republican state. I think it's going to help Steve Daines because people are going to be cognizant of the fact that they need Republicans in the Senate for the Supreme Court. And Montana, definitely a state where people would support those Republican Supreme Court appointees. Joni Ernst is in a difficult position. I'm going to say this one again. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death does indeed benefit the Democrats in terms of Joni Ernst. I do believe that's going to be the case. Down in Alabama, Doug Jones is in a very tough position here. This is definitely going to benefit the Republican Tommy Tuberville in this race because Jones is just going to be put in an impossible position. It could be the case here if we go to our Senate forecast. If it's going to load for us, there we go. Let's go back to the national forecast. If you go over to Alabama, right now they've got Doug Jones as a 28 in 100. That's not nothing. I mean, Trump has a less chance than Doug Jones, which I think I would probably contest. But at the same time, you have to say that Jones is not the favorite going into this election. Maybe he's just gonna, not make the political calculation and just vote against Trump's appointee because he's on his way out. Maybe he'll try and go all in for his election bid. We don't really know. So yeah. The state of Georgia, this one I believe will help the Republicans. We're going to fill in both of those, so those also benefit the GOP. South Carolina, Lindsey Graham's hypocrisy. Even though it's a Republican state, I think his hypocrisy will really ring deep for a lot of these South Carolinian voters, and I think it's going to be beneficial for Jamie Harrison. But he will have to answer questions on if he is going to support that nominee. Sorry about that. In the state of North Carolina, Tom Tillis, Cal Cunningham. Tillis is in another very difficult position. This one we're going to lean it over towards the Democrats. I forgot to fill in Virginia as a safe state. it should really be a safe state at this point. Uh, Gary Peters in Michigan, I mean, it kind of could go either way. With him, we're going to lean it slightly Democratic, and with that, the Democrats have more favored seats because of RBG than the Republicans. And then Maine, this is not going to be good for Susan. If let me rephrase that. If Susan Collins does vote for Trump's appointee, I think it's pretty much a done deal in Maine. If she doesn't, you have a very, very tight race, and as she has said, she's not. So I think overall, this probably is going to go on and benefit Susan Collins in terms of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So that's it for today's video, guys. 51-49 in terms of the seats that are going to be beneficial from Ginsburg's death. Again, this is not my Senate prediction. I would flip Maine. I would, flip flip a few of these states. Flip South Carolina. Flip Iowa, etc. But this is just the map of if these states are going to be beneficial or not by Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Good night.